So, just introduce yourself and tell like what your role is, and then we'll.
I'm Christopher Cravy. I'm the assistant principal at Ennis Junior High.
Okay, and Christine Jablon, I'm a 7th grade math teacher. So if you could just describe in detail as much as you can, like the process for developing a master schedule.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people go into it. The counselors, the special education department, the coaching department, and then the department leads, so that we know what are their needs, what are their ideas, so that it's more collaborative, so that we have the best schedule. A lot goes into it, knowing how many special education students we have, how many students require pull-outs, small group, how many students require an inclusion aid. We also have what did all the students sign up for, whether it's athletics, art. We basically just need those numbers. Earlier in the year, we typically do master schedule in March or April. So we start working on it, working on like a rough outline of that.
So that starts with like your teachers versus how many students you're gonna have?
Correct, yeah, so we look at so for Ennis it would be the intermediate schools, how many students can we expect up into our 7th grade level that next year. And then also look at, how fast is Ennis growing? Do we have anything coming in, such as new apartment complexes, any new houses that are being built, so that we can, again, kind of project what are we looking at.
Does the district tell you that, or do you guys have to kind of take that all into account?
District tells us stuff. We look into what's going on as well. Again, it's more collaborative to where it's a lot of people inputting what they know.
Okay, so you get your teachers with the number of kids, and then one thing you talked about was collaboration. So how does worried about teachers collaborating go into your schedule?
For instance, it's we have the teachers come in and tell us, what can we expect for the number of pre-AP students that they're going to have. We want to make sure that if they're concerned. So if their average class size has been on the high end, what can we do to lower their class size so that the students are more successful? But then also just any other concerns they might have had that they feel were holding the students back from being successful this year.
Okay, and then do you allow, when you're making the master schedule, time for your teachers to have collaboration throughout like the year, not just?
I wouldn't say throughout the year, but probably late October, early November, we put communication out there that they need to start discussing with their teams some feedback, both positive as well as opportunities that we have with the scheduling this year.
Okay, and then what about like building flow? Because I know that's you guys are new this year, so like how the kids are moving from place to place. So when you're thinking about moving 800 kids through the day, how does that fit into building the schedule?
I don't know, as far as like the overall master schedule, we look at that with like the lunch schedule and what does that look like, so that we're not pulling from different parts of the school to where kids coming through the hallway can disrupt classes. So we look at it pulling by hallway, so that again same teachers are going to lunch at the same time as well as the students, so that again not to interrupt in classes that are currently going on.
Okay, so once the schedule's built, we talked earlier that the computer kind of figures a lot of that out. So once the computer does its thing and you put that information in, is there any follow-up, like going back and looking at it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, again, I think that takes place, year round. There's things that we're looking at this year that that we're seeing opportunities with, But yes, we definitely, there's different things that we put into place. Number of students, class sizes. So I think that right now we have a cap at 24, and then we can go in and manipulate it to where if we need to go up to 27, 28 students in a class, we can, but we try to cap it off at 24, so that again, it's keeping the classes as small as possible.
So who's responsible for like making sure the special ed kids are where they need to be? And
again, that's first and foremost, we talk to our diag and get her input, as well as our SPED coordinators here, or SPED teachers here on campus, feedback on what is it that each IEP is calling for, and what's going to serve the needs of that student. That changes from year to year, and based on the students' needs from their IEPs.
So who makes sure that they're in the right classes with like the best support? Is that the special ed, or I mean the special ed teachers, or you guys, or like the counselors?
Well, the IEP is first gonna dictate,
Right,
what
where
is
they
it,
need to go.
what is it that they need, and then from there, that's when we construct the schedule, to serve their needs, as far as making sure they're where they're supposed to be
Right,
at.
that's what I'm talking
The counselors and the DIAG are gonna make sure that the schedule is set for their needs, and then if there is any problems with that, then again, it's a group effort with our scheduling coordinator, which would be the PEAMS coordinator early in the year, and now that's more shifted to Ms. Lonachek, our counselor, who's over that.
And then what about any consideration for like laws? I mean, I know you're gonna follow them, but like what are laws and guidelines from the district or the state that you have to worry about when you're making like the master schedule?
Well, class size, there's a cap to where we can't go over that class size.
Is that a district or state?
You have both. I mean, so with the state, I believe it is a cap of 30, but then you have district, policies that they.
And that's what I was wondering with junior high, because I knew sixth grade it was like 30 for the state, but the district tried to keep it close to 25.
Correct,
so
yeah, so we want to make them as small as possible, assuming that we had those resources. Other laws we have to look at are 504s, IEPs, making sure that we're meeting the needs of the students based on.
And I know one of my students this year is deaf, so like what happens if you need like a deaf interpreter for her? Like what would you do? She doesn't, she has a hearing aid, so.
Well, assuming that they call for certain needs, then we
I guess
have,
outside of your school is kind of what I'm thinking about, because
Yeah.
like we don't necessarily have an interpreter here.
depending on what the needed student is, there's certain funding that the state and the federal government, can provide, so that we can, again, provide the services,
So you
for
just
those
contact the
students.
district or that department, and then they help you with
Yeah,
that?
because most of the time, especially at the junior high level, they've already been receiving those, so it would more transfer up here. So for instance, our deaf students, I believe we have 4 or 5 that are on campus this year, where we didn't have any on campus last year. So their support at the intermediate level has now shifted up to where we see her once or twice a week in order to provide their services and meet the
Needs for them.
expectations for their IEPs.
Okay, so anything else you can add for the master, I mean, basically it's designing the master schedule, so just where the teachers are going, where the students are going, the classes that are offered.
Yeah, well, again, we just want to make sure that, we're meeting the minutes that are required by the state of Texas. That's more of a state guideline on the required number of minutes, so it's what's going to do best for the students. And so, something that, could be a possibility in the future is block scheduling, so that, we can maximize our class time with the students versus, where they're at now. If we see that this is working, again, it's going to be really off the data and seeing where we're at. So when we get that initial.
In block scheduling, you're talking like where they have an A day, B day kind of thing?
It could be, or it could be to where, they're attending certain classes for longer,
Math
like-
and like reading longer
Correct,
and
yes.
other,
Yes.
okay, that's interesting. Okay, anything else to add?
No, it's just it really is a collaborative effort on any master schedule that I've ever built. There's typically 15 to 20 people in the room.
Yeah,
kinda
it
coming
seems
together.
like there's like, you spread it, like you're doing this, okay, now we're gonna be doing this, then the next
Right.
person needs to do that, and it's like
Correct.
almost like a circle, you keep coming back,
Correct, yes.
double checking everything. Okay, well, thank you.
I appreciate you, thank you.